5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the High Low Sports Podcast. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. And Kelcey, we got ourselves a very busy show today. Some very interesting moves, a special guest, and a little bit of fun to preview as well, too. But we're going to start things off with probably the least favorite part of the show for you.
Yeah, probably the one that hurts the most right now, I think it's safe to say. And that's that NBA trade deadline. The Kings do it to me again.
They do it to you again. The Kings get kinged, if you will, if we were playing chess as well, too. They get whatever you want to do. Deuce is wild, Jack's heavy. I don't know, whatever game you play. The point is the Kings did not win this one off.
Look, they will never be. You'll never fool them as the king of the North. Let's just put it that way, or the king of the West, or the king of the Coast, whatever you want to call them. They're not the king of anything, except for the king of disappointment at this point in time. Every time there's a young backcourt, a young star in that team, and they're just like, "Hey, you look good." Not with us.
Anywhere else as well, too. But you know what? That's a perfect way to lead us into our opening segment. That is known as the tip-off, fittingly, since we're talking basketball. Brought to you, of course, by Dr. Squatch. Smell like a man, feel like a champion. Click on the link in our bio. Get all the wonderful soap and deodorant needs you need as well, too, without the harsh chemicals on your skin. And Kelcey, trade deadline, a few moves, not too many blockbusters. Only one real notable blockbuster, but a few underrated moves, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now, a couple of the underrated ones. You look at Norman Powell going to the Clippers. In return, Robert Covington to the Blazers. The Knicks land Cam Reddish for Kevin Knox. One that I'm kind of okay with on both sides, to be honest with you. This one, the Jazz, the Jazz acquiring the Blazers, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Hernan Gomez from the Spurs in that 3-team deal. Very interesting because there's no superstars moving in that one, but there's a lot of really good key pieces. But then there's the ones like you mentioned where you got a guy that could be considered a star. You have Karis LeVert going to the Cavs, CJ McCollum ending up in the Pelicans, which is honestly not a place I thought he'd be stopping. And then the one we just mentioned where you got a couple young superstars going for Domantas Sabonis and Tyrese Haliburton and Buddy Hield. So there's been some moves, man, and it's just getting started, it feels like.
And, it's a common theme that you pointed out there a lot, too. The Trailblazers, which seem to be blazing the way into the trade deadline, is they seem to be on a full fire sale. Like they talk about in the MLB trade deadline, like who's going to be sellers, who's going to be buyers. They did not hesitate to immediately start selling the farm, the house, the kitchen sink, the back door, the back porch. They sold a little bit of everything, including some things they probably didn't even own. They sold everything besides Damian Lillard at this point.
Man, if it's not drilled down, it's sold at this point in time. Let's be honest about it. Like, it's the old, if I didn't have enough screws in my head, I'd lose it. Well, that's the Blazers right now. If it's not screwed down to the Rose Center, they're not going to keep it. Or in this case, if you're Dame Lillard, if you're not being paid to stay there, they're not going to keep you around, it seems like.
I'm surprised because they obviously have been a mess this year. Damian Lillard's been hurt as well, too. They just haven't been performing up to expectations. They've been on a downward trajectory the last few years. Unfortunately, as they get older, pieces move here and there as well, too. They haven't been able to build around that backcourt of CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. But did you expect to see it kind of end, I don't want to say abruptly, honestly, but it feels like it kind of came out of left field. There was barely any rumblings, no real rumblings. Everyone else was saying they should get traded besides those two. And then I know it's like they're talking. CJ's gone.
Yeah, I mean, that was quick. Like you very rarely see a team move on that fast. And when you do, it's usually like something you've heard about for a while. I think, James Harden or Russell Westbrook or John Wall, in those recent trades where they've just, you heard about, like the writing was on the wall. Let's just put it that way. This one was like, all right, so maybe Dame gets traded at the trade deadline. Well, we're bad, but you know what? Maybe we can stick it through. And then all of a sudden, boom, CJ McCollum's gone. Like, wait, what? Pause, rewind. Like, what? Whoa, guys. Like, let's back this one up because I'm not used to this whirlwind moves from the Trailblazers. We're talking about a team that does not make try to make a lot of big name moves. It feels like they usually tend to say pretty status quo. And I'm sorry, you just traded one of the best backcourt duos and split them apart in the NBA. Like what could conceivably be a top 5 duo in the NBA, they're gone now. They're no longer together.
And it's interesting too, because the moves they made, it wasn't like they were swapping him out for another big piece or something like that. It wasn't like trading him for a bonus or something that might be more like team compatible with the Dame. They just kind of sold everything. And were like, you know what, guys, it seems like they're just going to try and rebuild around Dame real quick, fast, in a hurry, which I really don't know because I think they're kind of out of it in the West this year. Like it would take a run of epic proportions when Dame gets back for them to climb themselves back into a comfortable spot, I feel like.
here's my problem. Like, yeah, okay, you want to build around Dame. Okay, but you probably need to keep a couple young pieces if you want to build around Dame.
Something.
Number one of that being Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, why are you getting rid of a guy who has 3 years of service who's been playing pretty admirably in 3 years? And then you're just like, okay, bye. We don't need you anymore. I'm sorry. Is there something in free agency that I'm missing coming up? Because I don't know of another guy that's in free agency coming up that is the same quality talent that you just shipped off to Utah or New Orleans. Like, there's not a single other guy there. And if you're looking at bigs, I mean, good luck. Nobody really wants to go to Portland right now when there's other landing spots that you can go to.
Exactly. And well, on the top of that, we'll say, what about CJ McCollum going to New Orleans for you? When I look at that, I look at on paper how good that could be. The problem is there's so many holes in that team. Mostly Zion is where you don't have Zion at this point as well too. Brandon Ingram is still very good. He's just not quite last year's Brandon Ingram as well too. And maybe CJ McCollum could kind of fill in some of that void, but on paper, I think that team could be really good if they could just get healthy and get clicking again. Yeah,
I mean, look, that team has its own issues. You mentioned it. Your number one pick that you hinge so much on, it can't stay healthy. Although I kind of have this theory that they want him to slim down to play small forward, but I don't think he's ever going to slim down to that point anymore. I'm thinking Darnell Marshall might be what you see from him from the future, which is not a bad thing, because I sit here and look at Zion and I'm like, the dude can still go down and bang with the big guys. Let him do it. Take him for 50 games of a season. In those 50 games of the season, you're probably going to get close to double-doubles from him almost every night. And then while you're doing that, build around him with shooters, which you now have CJ McCollum who can handle an offense by himself. Brandon Ingram, if he can just figure out his shot consistently, would be fantastic. Obviously, Josh Hart being the guy that went in return for CJ McCollum being a big miss there. But getting another shooter that helps out with this team would be great for the Pelicans and just something to kind of expand, because right now your hopes are Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, go save me. In reality, you need to kind of just focus on, well, maybe we just let Zion go be big and do what he's doing. Like, maybe don't eat so much shrimp gumbo, but I can't blame you as a guy who loves food in New Orleans. That is a fantastic food place. Like, I'm not telling you to not go eat and do you, but like maybe adapt your game to be your new body style. Because he was a growing boy. That was never a question. Like, we all knew he was going to get bigger. Just let him play big.
Let him be Charles Barkley, honestly. Let him be the new round mound of rebound type of thing. Maybe it's not good for your knees long term, but I mean, he's not good. I don't think he's going to be able to play small forward. And if he does adapt, that's like putting Zach Randolph as small forward and asking him to slim down as well, too. I think that's a lot closer of a comparison when you look at their skill sets, their body, obviously that sort of thing. There's differences, obviously. Zion's freakishly more athletic, a lot more versatile, but you can't ask him to just go shoot threes now out of the corner or play 3-and-D on the wing with LeBron or Kevin Durant. That's a mess waiting to happen. So we'll see how that all works out as well, too. I want to see him just get back out on the court first and get through these injury woes, because right now it's not going so well, but that's going to take it.
Somebody needs to teach him to stay on the ground a little bit more. That's what I need from him. Like, go to the Zebo play style of playing under a phone book. Hang out just until you get healthy.
Hang out with Jokic for a month or something like that. You just learned that as well. But that's going to take us to the other real major trade as well, too, that happened. And you mentioned it. It was the Kings and the Pacers with really the only blockbuster so far at this point as well, too, sending Sabonis, Justin Holiday, and I think it was one other player that escapes my brain.
Jeremy Lamb.
Jeremy Lamb, thank you very much, for Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton, the gem of this trade as well, and some other pieces as well, too. So you're the Kings guy here. You obviously alluded to it in our opening that not the best trade.
No, and it's, by the way, it's Tristan Thompson was the other piece for Sacramento.
Sorry, for obvious reasons, that one slips my head.
Yeah, look, let's be honest. Tristan Thompson hasn't been Tristan Thompson for quite a few years. But let's just start with the Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton thing. Let's go back to last offseason, before last year's season started, and there was the entire Bogdanovich situation. Will he sign and trade? Will he go what? And then, you botched the sign and trade with Milwaukee, and you send your guy there. But you did that because you wanted to keep Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield comes out and performs very good last year. De'Aaron Fox takes a big step up, and this young rookie named Tyrese Halliburton comes in to add extra depth to your backcourt. And you're like, all right, cool. So I got a 3 guy going forward, and then I have a guy that can combo as a 2-3 and a point guard as in Tyrese Halliburton. And then I have my point guard in De'Aaron Fox, and he can play off ball too. And when he plays off ball too, Buddy Hield slides to the 3. It's that simple. Well, for some reason, they changed their mind completely. And you're thinking, okay, it's going to be De'Aaron Fox getting shipped out, which, as much as I would have hated that, would have been a much better option than what just happened. Out of all things, they go and trade, and this is coming after the situation in Philadelphia where they walked away from a trade where they asked for Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox only for Ben Simmons. And then you go to Indiana, and they're like, all right, we'll give you Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday, who, by the way, needs to get stuck first before he can play home games in California, which I didn't know until you mentioned that earlier, and that is actually 100% true. And Jeremy Lamb, I got nothing for Jeremy Lamb. Like, I literally got nothing for Jeremy Lamb. So you look at this, and you're like, all right, so you just traded last year's Rookie of the Year nominee, Buddy Hield, who's been shooting it lights out, and then, Tristan Thompson, I don't care about. Like, yeah, he needs to go. But you kept Marvin Bagley, who you've been ready to trade for a year and a half now, and De'Aaron Fox to add Domantas Sabonis in, which is, okay, I love Domantas Sabonis, but is he going to stay in Sacramento past this year? Probably not. This alone is another dumb trade in the history of dumb trades for the Kings. You get a young piece, they show promise, and you ship them out.
But
you don't even get good pieces back. Like, it's not like they've gotten good pieces in these trades either. Like, the best piece they got from DeMarcus Cousins was Buddy Hield. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. That was great. The other picks did not matter. Yogi Ferrell, where's he at now? I don't even know. Probably the Ignite League or the G League right now. I don't know. Like, there has been nothing good from Sacramento Kings trades in the last 20 years, it feels like. Not since getting Mike Bibby from Vancouver.
What a good time that was, huh? It's been 20 years.
I guess Memphis. They just moved to Memphis, so officially it's from Memphis.
And then you look at it too. In the draft, we talked about Tyrese Halliburton, a guy that we both liked a lot coming out. He's been fantastic. This next draft too, you pick in the top 5. You take Davion Mitchell, if I'm not mistaken, the kid out of Baylor, who fantastic defensive guard, has some work on his offensive game. Still going to be, I think he's a good player, but you already had a very full backcourt as it was. The 3 guys you mentioned already, and then you add him to it while you still have the Marvin Bagley situation, which he's just not working. I don't know if he needs a change of scenery. He doesn't want to accept the role, or maybe. I don't know what that situation is, but he has not clicked in Sacramento the way that most people thought he would coming out of Duke. So you need something in the front court. You trade a backcourt piece to get a front court piece. That in theory makes sense. You don't trade the 20-year-old Rookie of the Year nominee who is climbing, who 2 weeks ago said, I want to be here. I want to turn this around.
Yeah.
Or a guy who's on a basically expiring contract is going to be gone at this point as well, too. Unless Davion Mitchell is secretly the truth and we just haven't seen enough of it.
He's been having a good season for the Kings. There's no question about that. He has been playing very well. But as you mentioned, he is much more defensive than he is offense, whereas Tyrese Halliburton is a complete guard. It honestly was eerily similar to if you look at the old Kings backcourt where you had Mike Bibby, who was a complete guard, and Doug Christie in the same backcourt. That's how those two played together in the same backcourt, which I thought that's why they were going to trade De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield. But they trade instead a centerpiece and Buddy Hield. It's just like I don't get it. I'll never understand the Kings thought process. And if by all means, if there's somebody from Kings Nation out there that has an inside source with the front office, I want to talk to him. I would love to have him on the podcast and answer for your your discretions over the last 20 years. Like, I need answers as a long-term Kings fan. Because I don't know if you've seen the TikTok going around, but there's an Army guy that has a Kings flag in the back, and he just gets up and he folds it and then burns it because that's how disappointing it has been being a Kings fan for the last decade plus. In my life, almost 30 years.
Come on to this podcast and answer for your crimes against Kingsmanity at this point as well, too. Like, we talked, all those guards you have, you trade one of them for a front court player, understandable. Two of them, though, and one of them should have been the one that was all but off limits as well, too. I feel like Halliburton should have been the off limits one when you factor in age, contract, and the potential, everything like that. Like, that's the one that's rough. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is outstanding. Not even a negative slight towards him. You're factoring in age at this point. Is the only reason Tyrese would be more untouchable than him. So we'll see. Maybe De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis are a fantastic 1-2 punch, and Davion Mitchell develops a dirty shot from the outside. I don't know. There's some answering to be done.
I can only hope, but no, it is absolutely just crazy to consider, and I don't know.
And by the way, we're not even done yet. The trade deadline still hasn't fully ended yet as well, too. There's still James Harden might be on the move. Ben Simmons, you never know. He might be on the move as well, too. Those two maybe linked and get swapped for each other. There's still a chance of Russell Westbrook getting traded. You never know as well, too, because that experiment in LA has not worked out so far. So there's some pieces still available to move right now.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see coming forward. I mean, you mentioned James Harden. The conversation with Philadelphia on that one so far, some of those trade rumors, it's like literally you're starting 5 for the other person. Like, I'm just like, okay, what are you going to trade for the other guy then? Because they're both that one's getting just astronomical. I blame. I don't even know who I can blame anymore for this crazy price tag on players now. It's getting insane.
It's ridiculous. And if I'm James Harden, he's showed every indication he wants out as well too. I like the idea of him and Joel Embiid a little bit, but not that much. Not giving up everything. And it's ironic that Seth Curry might be the hang up on that one too, considering, if I'm not mistaken too, he is Doc Rivers' son-in-law. So it's like,
Yeah,
no, I draw the line at family at this point. That's going to be the one thing that's going to stop this.
yeah. I mean, that does seem to be the one that's sticking him around, keeping them stuck. Him or Matisse Thybulle, one or the other. Like, I mean, they're both fantastic young players, and I don't know. Take your pick as to which one's holding that up. I mean, personally, I think Matisse Thybulle more so, but yeah, you're probably right. A little nepotism in there with Seth Curry.
It's a shame because just if they would have known, they could have done Ben Simmons for just Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield, and that could have been a much better. That could have worked out. I mean, if you'd have known it was going to be that easy, I guess.
Man, I would have sent him Tristan Thompson. I'd have sent him Buddy Hield. I'd have sent him Marvin Bagley, and I'd have taken Ben Simmons in return. Ben Simmons, you're going to sit at the 4. You shouldn't live down there, or the 3. It's fine, whatever. You can run on the offense, and you can immediately go sit in the corner of the block and just back up people. Like, I don't know what you're going to play Pau Gasol in my offense. Like, just catch the ball in the middle of the court and pass it off. That's what I want you to do.
If you get a rebound, you push the heck out of the thing, you get running as well too, because very few guys in transition can play quite like you. In transition, he's one of the best. The problem is once transition's done is when it gets messy. So
if there's a man in the court,
and then it's just a body. Exactly. So that's going to do it for our opening segment, the tip off, which is going to move us on to Kelcey's second favorite part of the show, the main event. The main event, of course, brought to you by Colorcast, the pinnacle in audio sports broadcasting as well too. Check us out on there this weekend for the Super Bowl as well. We'll be on the call for that one. And well, we keeping it up, we got ourselves another fun interview coming this week as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite portions. You mentioned maybe my second favorite. I don't know. Lately, it's been my favorite portion having main event. But I gotta say, I think this one might be your favorite interview we've done so far because you have a little bit of ties with the man that we interviewed.
I am a little bit biased in that regard as too. I got to interview someone I knew pretty well from my time when I lived in Iowa, the legendary sports director from KWWL TV. His name is Rick Coleman, been in the business for more than 30 plus years as well too. One of the best you'll find out there. He's seen it all. He's seen a lot. And well, you know what? I'll let him go and tell you a little about it. We talked a lot of sports from his time as a sports broadcaster. We talked about his favorite team in the NFL a little bit and a variety of other things. So we'll go and let you take a listen for yourself.
Oh no, we're having audio issues with this one. So hang on for just 1 second.
No worries, guys, right now. But while we're going dissecting this as well, too, you can already see right in the background what his favorite team is as well, too. He's got a Chiefs sweatshirt on with an entire Chiefs wall back there as well, too. So that's something to be looking ahead to as well. He's definitely a big-time Chiefs fan. So that's something we will be talking about as well, too. And I did ask him the pressing, unfortunate question as we looked at that AFC Championship game as well, too. And he has an interesting story about that because it's not just this game that hurt. It's a whole nother level of hurt going back as well. So that's a...
So while I'm figuring this technical difficulties out, DJ, just run through a little bit more of this trade deadline. Run through that James Harden trade right now because this is getting. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to figure this one out.
Not a problem as well, too. So I'm going to just go and jump back into that James Harden deadline. So for those of you tuning in with us as well, too, we're going to try and get that sorted out as quick as humanly possible. But looking at that James Harden trade, looks like the plan is the Nets in Philadelphia are talking. They've, depending on who you talk to, that's Brian Windhorst versus Adrian Wojnarowski on Twitter. It's literally I've seen the Civil War Marvel thing with their faces photoshopped on it going head to head as well. So we'll have to see if they're actually talking or not. But it does sound like if there is a chance of him moving, Philadelphia might be a place where we'll see him united with Joel Embiid, but then we'll see potentially Ben Simmons and whoever else may be going to the Nets, which the big question there is going to be, how well does he work with Joel Embiid as well? Because we all know James Harden, the king of pick and rolls, almost to a fault, actually completely to a fault. He will dribble the air out of that ball and some as well too. Whereas Joel Embiid has been, in my humble opinion, the MVP of the league as well so far. So that's something to see. As we do actually have a quick question for our live stream from RJ Hasty. Who, by the way, was our interview subject last week as well too. We appreciate you coming back on again. A fantastic interview. It was great to hear it. Saying, what do you think the Lakers will do? When I look at the Lakers right now, I think there's only a few moves they really can make. They really honestly need a point guard that they could pair with a LeBron and AD who can kind of shoot the ball and but also doesn't need the ball a lot. That's what I look at as well. So I hate to say it, but Tyrese Halliburton would have been the perfect fit if they could have pulled that off as well too. That's a perfect type of guard. I think I hate to say they got to get out from under Russell Westbrook, but it's just not working. And with him at LeBron, Anthony Davis, especially at this point in his career, I just don't think it's going to work out. So I think that is a big trade they're going to have to make as well, too. So I think they do look in the area of a point guard, a ball handler type guy that can maybe shoot, do something like that as well, to just kind of expand their range a little bit. So that's one thing that we'll be looking forward to as well. And then look on defensively, too, I think they need a little bit of help defensively because Russell and LeBron aren't really playing defense now like they used to as well. So that's a great question, RJ. We appreciate that as well. And then going back to the Nets and the Philadelphia trade, if Ben Simmons does end up heading to the Nets, that'll be kind of interesting. Defensively, you have him and Kevin Durant, two very big, lengthy wings defensively that could switch on and off. Ben Simmons could run the floor, get out of the way of guys like Kyrie and Kevin Durant and let them go to work, backdoor cuts. So that's an interesting trade if it does play out as well, too. I think that one benefits the Nets a little bit more than the 76ers. The 76ers, as great and amazing as James Harden is, and you want a guy to go with Joel Embiid, I don't know if James Harden is quite the fit because of the way when he's at his best, it's dribbling the heck out of the ball and dominating it instead of letting Joel Embiid get down on the block and just go to work as well, too. So we'll definitely have to wait and see. I think the Sixers do look to make a move. If Damian Lillard is on, I know he's injured right now, but if he is on the trade block, if I'm 76ers, I'm like, take whatever you want besides Joel Embiid at this point and let's keep either Maxey or Tybalt. One of them stays and Seth Curry because, family ties. But those three stay, take everything else you want and all the picks. Give us Damian Lillard to roll with Joel Embiid, who, while that pick and roll would be dangerous, I don't think they have to run pick and roll because Dame off ball can just run around off screens and hit threes. He could bring the ball up and just flick it down into the post to Joel Embiid. So they got options as well, too. But Kelcey, it looks like we might be set to go.
Yeah, so we're going to go back. We're just going to go straight to the to the interview itself. You're not going to see any of the fancy backgrounds, unfortunately. For some reason in the transfer of it did not keep the audio. So, guys, you're going to enjoy the interview in full, uncut fashion, which we love to do anyway. So enjoy this one as we get it in.
Awesome. So 3, 2, and 1. So, Rick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us as well today, too. And we're going to go ahead and start with it. You have more than 30 years in the business as a sports director. Tell us, what has that been like? You've seen a whole lot of sports from a bunch of different angles. What's it been like for you?
It's been awesome, DJ. And it was great working with you for the short time we got a chance to work together over the last couple of years. We miss you at the shop, but it's been great being in the business. It's something I've always dreamed of doing, is working in sports and working at sports television. Some of my early idols. I mean, some people might get mad at me for saying this. Bryant Gumbel was one of my early influences and idols, and also, some of the people, Tom Brokaw, that worked in news as well. Were news journalists, and also our own Ron Steele at KWWL. He was one of the first sports guys I got a chance to meet. I actually asked him to come speak at one of my high school journalism classes when I was in high school, and he was in the business. And he came and joined us at 7:30 in the morning, one of the first classes of the day. So, and showed a lot of great passion, enthusiasm. I said, I got to do what that guy's doing. And as you well know, he moved on to become one of the premier news anchors in the state of Iowa. And I consider him one of the best in the country.
Absolutely. It doesn't get any better than that as well, too. And during your time there, you got to meet a lot of athletes, a lot of future Pro Bowlers, all pro type of guys, basketball players, NBA players, all that, world champion wrestlers, Olympic athletes. Who are a couple of them that stick out? You told me you actually got to meet Bob Sanders, one of the greatest safeties of the recent era that unfortunately was cut a little bit short. Tell me about some of those athletes you got.
Yeah, he was one of the great football players that I ever got a chance to watch and witness perform on the field, because he gave it his all. I mean, at the University of Iowa, he was a standout safety, a hard-hitting guy, a guy that could change the tempo of the game just basically because of the physical impact he would kind of give to a game, like a big hit on a running back or receiver. I can't say those things nowadays. I mean, they're trying to legislate that out of the game, but he was and that's probably one of the reasons why his career was cut so short. He only played 60 games in the NFL, but each one of them was impactful, especially during his not only his MVP season, but the season in which he came back from injured reserve to help the Colts to the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl title. So no, he was and a humble guy. I remember it was after a game in Kansas City, one of his first games as a rookie in 2004. And I walked up to him, and he, obviously remembered me from Iowa, and we talked, and he gave me his telephone number. Say, call me anytime, man. We'll hang out. And I thought that's the kind of guy he is, just real down to earth and just a beautiful human being.
Absolutely. You got to confirm this from him. I look at him. He's only about 5'8", about 200 pounds. He's a small guy that loved to run into everybody. But his arms, those things look like absolute tree trunk legs. Are they as big as in person as they look on TV?
He's just one big muscle. There's not an out. Even today, I saw him last fall at an Iowa football game, and I got a chance to talk with him. Even here he is right here. I'll show you. We have to do some visuals. There he is. He's hanging on my wall, one of the autographed pictures up there. But no, he's very personable, and yeah, he's a specimen. Even today, I mean, what he's got to be his late 30s, early, close pushing 40, and he's still a specimen. He still takes care of his body. Unfortunately, he can't work at the level that it did when he was playing football, but really an outstanding physical specimen still.
Absolutely as well, too. And you'd mentioned Iowa football as well. They have one guy coming out of the draft this year, Tyler Linderbaum, the center as well, too, who's projected to go really, really high. When me and my co-host at a draft board, we both had him as possible top 10 prospects. What do you think about him? And what is it with these Iowa teams that keep sending out these offensive and defensive linemen that step right in and are immediate impact players?
And that's the thing. Tyler Linderbaum started on the other side of the football, on the defensive side. And that's the thing. Once you get involved with Kirk Ferentz football program, because that's what he's an offensive line guru. And that's what he was. That's the thing that was the selling point when he first became head coach at the University of Iowa back in 1999, was that he was an offensive line guru. And it's shown that. I mean, over the years, there's at least one or two members of the offensive line going pro. Ike Butker, who was a quarterback in high school at Cedar Falls High School, became he was projected to be a tight end at Iowa, ended up being an offensive lineman, at first a reserve and then a starter. And now he's playing for the Buffalo Bills playing a prominent role there. And in speaking of offensive linemen, have you heard about Trevor Penning from the University of Northern Iowa?
Yeah, he's
projected to be the first offensive lineman taken, which is kind of a surprise to many of us, because we thought he was good, but obviously he's showing well at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, and he's a guy to keep your eye on as well. He's from the state of Iowa, 6'6", 335, 40 pounds, and just a beast. And I guess he's showing that at the Senior Bowl practices.
Absolutely. He's an absolute mammoth of a man as well, too. He's kind of like, he reminds me a lot of Orlando Brown as well, too. Like, even if he's not as technically sound, he'll just eat you alive with the fact that he's twice the size of about anyone he's going to go against.
Exactly. And that's kind of what he did at the FCS level, which we figured would happen. But he's proven himself to be just as effective against the guys coming out of the major schools.
Absolutely as well, too. And obviously we talked about Iowa. Tight end U is what they've been called recently. George Kittle, Dallas Clark, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant. When you look at all of those guys, who would you say do you think was the biggest surprise coming out of college as well, too, that made the transition? And which one do you think will be the best when they're all said and done?
We saw Dallas Clark in the last couple of years. He was becoming a star by his senior year. Even though he had transitioned, he started out as a linebacker, a reserve linebacker. And Kirk Ferentz saw him catching passes at practice. Said, no, we got to move this guy to the offensive side. So Dallas Clark we knew about. George Kittle is the guy that surprises me most, because he was injured a lot in college. He had fallen on the depth chart several times. By senior year, he had started to come around, but, we were saying, wow, he's a good kid. His dad was a former player at Cedar Falls High School, and then went on to University of Iowa. And actually, Kittle grew up in Oklahoma, Norman, where his dad Bruce Kittle was an assistant coach for Bob Stoops. But Oklahoma didn't try to recruit him because they didn't think he was big enough, strong enough. And that's one thing that when you think about George Kittle, you think about someone that's tough and physical. He didn't have that even at Iowa. He really didn't have that reputation. So he's one that surprises me most because he's a do everything tight end. He can block. He can obviously catch the ball. He's an all-purpose tight end, and the kind of old school in a sense because, even though I'm a big Kelcey fan, Travis Kelcey's just a big wide receiver. He can block, and but Kittle is a physical inline blocking tight end who also can stretch a defense with his pass receiving abilities.
Absolutely, as well too. He's terrifying when he has the ball in his hands too. Nobody wants to tackle that guy as well too.
He runs with an anger. Even though he's a fun-loving guy, and you see him in these interviews, he plays angry, and that's that's why San Francisco. I think that the whole team plays angry, and it's probably because of who they have at quarterback. But they play with a purpose, and he's one of those guys.
100%. And it's not just football as well too. Iowa basketball has come on really strong the last few years, led by guys like Luka Garza, even Jordan Bohannon going on his 6th, 7th year now. It feels like playing as well too. What do you think's been
somebody people out there probably wishes that he was done.
Yeah, they're definitely those fans are definitely
he's kind of
harsh on him
a little bit.
What do you think's been the transformation with Iowa basketball the last few years into becoming a more dominant basketball school?
Well, this year, have you heard of the Murray brothers, Keegan and Chris? This year, they've kind of come to the forefront. They were lightly recruited out of high school. They went to Cedar Rapids Prairie High School, but they were kind of slow developing. They went to a prep school after they finished high school, and that maturation process that took place while they were at the prep school, the development physically as well as mentally. And they've kind of developed even more of a competitive drive. So those two guys are the key to this year. And I think these guys, Fran is recruiting guys for his system. Unfortunately, they've not done as well on the road, especially in the Big Ten, as they would like to this year. But they should be able to make the NCAA tournament this year. So I think a lot of it has lended to Fran McCaffrey coaching them up.
Absolutely. But before we get out of this, we got one more name drop that you've gotten a chance to know over the years as well too, is the legend himself in the world of wrestling, Dan Gable. Tell us a little bit about that as well, because he refers to you on a first name basis, has said, and I quote on live TV, "I love you, Rick Coleman." Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Dan Gable was a great guy, one of the greatest athletes. Yeah, even though a lot of people don't follow wrestling like we do here in Iowa and Oklahoma and Pennsylvania. He is really a living legend. He was a self-made wrestler, in terms of his abilities, because I wouldn't call him mediocre, but he was an average athlete at the junior high level. But the guy just became it's almost Spartan-like in terms of his attention to detail for his body, for his mind, and the way he went about it. I mean, the nutrition, all of that. Even way back then, he lived, think. It was all about living, thinking, and breathing what he did, and that was wrestling. And obviously, one of the all-time greats. And I got a chance to know him. I've watched him grow over the years in terms of his verbal skills, because he struggled a little bit with that early on when we would do interviews, but over the years, he became himself. He stayed within himself. He didn't try to venture off and be some incredibly literate guy. He just stayed humble and within himself, and in terms of the conversations that we had.
Absolutely, just letting himself go a little bit as well, too, letting it out as well.
You've also failed to mention Kurt Warner.
We were getting there
around Christmas time. I followed Kurt basically from his days at the University of Northern Iowa when he was before he met Brenda. I watched him sit on the bench at Northern Iowa for 4 years behind a guy named Jay Johnson. If you want to look that name up, he's the offensive coordinator at Michigan State right now. But Jay Johnson was the starting quarterback at UNI. Very efficient guy, a guy that I would call him the Jimmy Garoppolo of UNI. He was a guy that he didn't lose a lot of ball games. He didn't win a ton of them, but he didn't lose games. They had a great defense, great running game, great offense. You know, they had all the elements. So he didn't lose games like Carson Wentz. He went out, and occasionally he would hit a pass, but Kurt Warner sat behind him for all those years. And when Kurt got that opportunity his senior year, they went to the playoffs, and Kurt had a great year, was the conference player of the year, but didn't do enough in college to obviously get drafted. And we all know the story if you've gone to the movie or read the book. But, you know, I always knew Kurt as a very humble individual. And this is something that you would probably connect to. The year that Kurt wasn't drafted, a guy from our area by the name of Trev Alberts was drafted by your Indianapolis Colts in the first round. And he's from Cedar Falls, Trev Alberts. He went to a school that's no longer there now, NU High. Trev Alberts, he was a linebacker, played for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, won the Butkus Award his senior year. And I remember them holding a big draft party for him in Cedar Falls at what was then the Holiday Inn on University Avenue. I went and covered that event. It was a major event. He was drafted number 5 overall, and it was beautiful. I interviewed Trev. It was an outstanding event. And then the very next day, when they announced the undrafted free agents that were flocking to different programs, Green Bay picked up Kurt Warner. And I told my then sports director, I was a weekend guy at the time, I said, we got to go interview Kurt. So we went to this little small apartment, which was not very far from that Holiday Inn where Trev Alberts was drafted. I went to the small apartment to interview Kurt. He comes walking out with a wife beater T-shirt. There were little kids in the background, 2 of them, and there was Brenda. And he comes out and he said, I probably should put on a shirt for this interview. and we interviewed him about going to Green Bay and being an undrafted free agent prospect for the Packers. So, I mean, talk about stories and how they end. You know, Kurt Warner went on to be one of the greatest of all time, a Hall of Famer. And Trev Alberts was out of football in 2 years after being drafted number 1. You know, it's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. And you mentioned Kurt Warner, too. He was actually there with Peyton Manning and Dallas Clark here just a couple of weeks ago, too, hanging out. It looks like they're doing at Peyton's Places there at the local Hy-Vee that Kurt Warner was working at as well, too.
Yes. The night before, Peyton is really good friends with Dallas Clark, and they hooked up on Main Street in Cedar Falls and had dinner at Montage, a local restaurant. And then the next day, Kurt Warner is in town for the Peyton's Place episode at Hy-Vee. And I kind of figured that out because I figured people were thinking they were doing a commercial at Hy-Vee. I said they would have blocked off the store and shut it down for the day to do an interview or do something special like that. What they ended up doing, I figured would be a Peyton's Place, because he had done a Peyton's Place with another athlete the day before, Minneapolis. So yeah, it was nice, and the fans flocked. I didn't make it there. I live in Cedar Rapids now, which is about an hour from Cedar Falls, and I didn't make it up there in time for that. But yeah, I guess it went over well.
You know, you got to talk to Kurt Warner when he was still wearing the wife beater shirt as well, too. Like, you already got the in access with it, so it's all good there. So. And we've been talking a little NFL now, so I think it's about time we jump to the NFL as well, too. You are one of the OG Chiefs fans, well before it was cool, decades before they started getting the bandwagon as well, too. You've seen a whole lot of them there as well, too. What are your thoughts on how this season ended? It looked like it was another trip to the Super Bowl, well lined up, and then the wheels just kind of came off.
It did. I don't know what happened in the second half of that game. It's been too painful to rewatch to even analyze what went wrong. I mean, I can only surmise that I think they got a little too high. It was too easy in the first half. You know, sometimes when things are too easy and then it becomes more difficult, you become a little panicked. Even if you're at home working on your computer and you're working on a deadline and things are flowing with that computer, and then all of a sudden things go kind of haywire. And I think that's what happened. Cincinnati's defense changed some things in the second half and kind of I don't want to say confused, but made things look a little different for Patrick Mahomes. And he still tried to be the same carefree. I'm still going to fling it to wherever I want to fling it, or I'm still going to look downfield for the big plays, and they weren't there. And instead of maybe the coaching staff kind of taking over, they should have taken over at the end of the first half when he was at his own goal line and trying to, with 5 seconds left, trying to score a touchdown to Tyreek. They should have kicked the field goal or done something reasonable. I just think the coaching staff should have taken over for him, and unfortunately they didn't. And Cincinnati, I mean, give it to them. I mean, they deserve to be there. And it's kind of painful because they beat us twice. And now the narrative is going to be that Joe Burrow is somehow in the same class as Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, any football fan who's been watching the game knows that's not quite the case. Burrow is an incredible young man, incredible young player. And they've done some remarkable things this year, but I don't think that's the case yet. It'll be interesting next year.
No one loves Joe Burrow quite like I do. I've been talking about him since we started the podcast as well, too. When he was at LSU, I was the first one to jump on that bandwagon before school. But I'm not getting it twisted either. Like,
hey, you remember I came to work. I own a Joe Burrow's jersey. I mean, I own a Joe Burrow jersey, so I like him too for some reason. And I found out why I like him. I send you the little picture of him. He was a Chiefs fan before Patrick Mahomes was.
Exactly. He's rocking that old Chiefs helmet too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So he's going to be an outstanding player. I think, to be honest with you, I think his trio of receivers are better than what the Chiefs have right now. I mean, if you look at, Chase is as good as anybody in the league. Maybe, I put him in that category. The things that he can do, especially once he gets the ball. And then the combination of Higgins and their possession guy. I mean, they're tight end. They've got, the only thing they don't have is an offensive line. That offensive line leaves something to be desired. But Joe Burrow showed me his toughness when he got knocked down 9 times, sacked 9 times against the Titans, and he was still able to survive. So I'll tell you a little story about the Chiefs. Talk about things coming full circle. 50 years. I'd say 52 years I've been in love with the Kansas City Chiefs. I became in love with the love affair started after they won the Super Bowl that same year. I was only 8, 1970. Yeah, I was only 8 after they won the Super Bowl. All I hear is Kansas City Chiefs. So I love the Chiefs. The next year, they did make the Super Bowl in 1971. 71, they didn't make the Super Bowl. The next year, they made the playoffs. My parents, I researched the Chiefs like crazy, just like I'm doing now. 1971. Researched them, followed them that year. They had a great year. They went 10-3-1, made the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the AFC. They were the number 1 seed, the Kansas City Chiefs were, in the AFC. Hosted a playoff game at Arrowhead State. No, it wasn't Arrowhead. It was before Arrowhead was built. Arrowhead was built the next year. So it was the old Memorial Stadium. The last game played there. They led the Miami Dolphins the whole game. Ed Pollack, a kid from Iowa, played at Iowa, had an incredible game. More than 300 all-purpose yards in that game, including he ran back a kickoff at the very end of the game with the game tied at 24. He ran a kickoff back to the 31-yard line and set up an easy chip shot field goal for a Hall of Fame kicker, Jan Stenerud. Stenerud missed that kick, which would have won the game and sent them to the AFC Championship game. Well, guess what the score was that they lost to the Miami Dolphins in overtime? 27-24. I cried like a baby all night. I won't tell you what I did after the Cincinnati game, which ended up being the identical score. Did I cry, honey?
Inside, you did.
Inside, she says I did, not outwardly.
The emotions are real. They just couldn't let anyone see them, but we just couldn't let it see. But that's an incredible story. And that's like you mentioned, a full circle all the way back as well, too. And it kind of brought me to the next one, Super Bowl, the Bengals taking on the Rams as well, too. The Bengals, the upstart team that came out of nowhere, and the Rams, if you buy it, they will come almost sort of thing as well, too. They did the
exactly.
How do you see that game playing out?
I don't know. I mean, at first glance, just like the Chiefs, I thought we were going to roll the Bengals. I said this second time around, this time is at Arrowhead. It's a revenge game. I thought there's no way we could lose this game, but there's something about that Bengals team, that the resolve and toughness of that team. It kind of shows with Joe Burrow. I mean, the guy gets knocked down. He gets sacked. I don't know how many times he got knocked out. He got sacked 9 times. But they say success is defined by every time you get up, and every time he gets knocked to the canvas, he gets up. So I mean, I would not put money against the Bengals, even though, because that whole environment is going to be new to a lot of people. Matthew Stafford hadn't played in a playoff game. He played in a playoff game. He had never won a playoff game. So he's as new to the experience as anybody. So how's he going to react in that setting? So the only thing is the Rams are at home. I mean, they've got, like you say, the best team money can buy. But still, I would not bet against the Bengals. And they've been in a championship, Chase and Burrow and those guys. Some of those guys have been in the high pressure situation before at the collegiate level. And to be honest with you, there's not much difference anymore between the two in terms of the pressure and everything. Only the guys in college don't get paid as much.
At least that we know of as well, too. But yeah, exactly. Like I saw a thing too, since that 2019 season, and must win like playoff / get into the playoff type games. Joe Burrow is undefeated and has like 40 touchdowns, only like a couple of picks. He's been absolutely incredible going back, including 2019 in those must win games. Like it's that when the chips are on the line, he's as good as it gets, it feels like. And if the Rams let them hang around, he'll find a way to win that game. So if the Rams have a chance, they got to get up 35-3 and just run away and hope to keep them at bay.
That is the key. You're right. I mean, I was sweating bullets when we didn't score at the end of the first half. I said, this is going to come back to bite us. I was really, I guess my depression started to hit then, because I knew that, you leave the door open a crack. These guys are like the tiptoe burglar. They're going to come in and snatch it. And they did.
Exactly, as well, too. And we're going to talk, we got to talk about the guy that is known as the GOAT as well. Tom Brady recently announcing his retirement. He's had a career almost, honestly, it's closing out on the same length as your career at this point, it feels like, as well, too. He's within earshot of it. What are your thoughts on seeing him retire? Have you ever seen an athlete quite like Tom Brady as far as the longevity goes?
Exactly. And the way he was playing at the very end, I've never seen anything like that. Even Elway was kind of on his last legs when he was with the Broncos, and they had a 2,000-yard rusher in Terrell Davis, so that he had that kind of support. But really, Brady did not have that kind. He had the numbers that he put up in the passing realm. Some of the best, obviously the best of his career, but some of the best ever. I mean, the numbers he put up from the passing perspective. So, I mean, he was still slinging the rock. I mean, he was still making plays, and he was within just a whisker. Just think how close they came to making the Super Bowl. That's incredible.
It's crazy.
I mean, he could have gone out a winner.
It was a Cooper Kupp, an FCS guy, getting randomly loose twice at the back end of the game with less than 30 seconds to go away from possibly going. Like, it's absolutely crazy.
I know. You love Cooper Kupp, and he is incredible. He really is. I didn't know if it would translate to the NFL, what he was doing at the FCS level, but it has, and then some. I mean, the guy, you can't cover him. You can't. He finds openings. I mean, he's almost like a coach where he can find openings in a defense while he's on the move, while he's doing it out there on the field. He's that chess piece that can maneuver in any situation, which is remarkable.
It's crazy. It's like he sees the field like he's playing Madden or something like that. It's like, I see the opening here from a bird's eye view. I'm just going to run right there. His ability to see the field is absolutely incredible. And now we got to talk about something that you know very well too. I want to talk about some of your apparel collection. I mean, whether it's jerseys, helmets, you got probably one of the best collections I've ever seen. You got to tell us a little about this. How many jerseys do you think you're looking at right now?
Well, my wife kind of curtailed some of that activity. She did. She tried. I did. I mean, first of all, I went to collect Chiefs. Yeah, she strongly suggested. I went to collect Chiefs apparel at first because I didn't have my son kind of introduced me to this website where I could get a lot of things for less money, and so that's what I did. I went that route. So now by this time I've gotten some of the Hall of Famers and people that I really appreciate. I mean, I can't even tell. I had to go in my closet to look and see. And then I branched off into the Negro League a little bit because, I went to Kansas City and went to the museum a few times. And I'm always fascinated by those guys that got a chance to, that played for really basically the love of the game because they weren't getting paid a lot of money. Neither were a lot of the major leaguers either at that time. But and so I did that. I went that route, and things I have on display here in my man cave. There's the Chiefs. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, you could definitely see it. There's a whole lot of Chiefs in there.
Yeah, that's the Chiefs wall.
I see that Tyreek Hill signed jersey.
Oh yeah, Tyreek. Yeah, that's Tyreek, and I've got a Jan Stenerud football. I've got a Travis Kelcey down there. I've got I think I got a Tyreek too right here. I've got the big man out of Nebraska, former offensive lineman. There's a little helmet here. I mean, so I don't know. I've got so much stuff, man. And then obviously I've got pictures and signed pictures and pictures of, obviously Patrick and then Joe Montana, who played for the Chiefs for a couple of seasons, took us to AFC Championship game. I don't know. I don't know why it was just something, I don't know. I don't know why I had such a desire to get up. Man, I'm such a fan of the game. I'm such a fan of the game of football. And I think that's what it comes down to. Some of the early stuff I got, these guys are my heroes, like Tony Dorsett. And I got a chance to meet Tony Dorsett and work with him. I actually had him on our station. Oh, wow. You remember Tony? Yeah, I had him on our station probably about 20 years ago. He did a sports cast on KWWL.
That's incredible. The 99-yard touchdown run, the OG full field run, he got to be on KW. That's really cool. I never knew that story.
99 and a half.
99 and a half, excuse me. Hey, I totally understand you with the collection. I'm starting to collect those souvenir cups they give out at games at this point as well. So I'm working my way up there. I got a ways to go still. It's a recent start. But I also want to talk to you real quick as we got a few minutes too. Looking at Brian Flores and what he is suing the NFL as well too, that whole situation play out, talking about the lack of diversity and the inequality that's going on in the NFL. What are your thoughts when you look at that? Someone who's seen the game for 40, 50 plus years now.
Well, I can understand his pain. I mean, if I were to, especially in the situation this past week, and I think that was the thing that really got to him. I mean, the Giants situation, he gets a text from Belichick, who inadvertently texted him and was looking to actually text Brian Daboll. I mean, that would be hurtful. I haven't gone to the interview, but I'm getting word that they've already hired the guy. So why should I even go to the interview? But I probably have to because, it'll look bad. So, in that sense, I can understand his pain and why he was, some of the other things may have been a little far reaching. I mean, the Denver Broncos, John Elway thing, saying they come to the interview disheveled. But the thing is that bothers me is that of all the African-American coaches, probably that would be a candidate for a job right now, I think Brian Flores would be the most qualified. He proved in Miami he's a leader of men. They didn't have anything in Miami. How was he even close to some of the things that he was able to do there? You know what I'm saying? It's remarkable. So it's unfortunate that what he's doing with this lawsuit is going to ruin his chance of ever coaching in the NFL again. He might as well. He knows that, but he wants to get it out there that the process is not fair. And I'm for fairness in the process. I know life is not fair. You get, what you get at this time at point in time, and you push for the future. And I think that's what he's trying to do here. And it's unfortunate that he's the one that has to take the bullets on this.
It really
because
is.
I think if he got a chance, just imagine if Brian Flores was with a franchise that had a quarterback. Because I don't think exactly. He got rid of their best player when he got there because and he still was able to win. So, and one of the things he might get changed. I mean, obviously, if it's correct, if they find out there's evidence that the owner, the Dolphins, offered him money, if they can find tangible evidence that he offered him money, that could change the game. That owner obviously is gone because it hurts the whole what the whole league stands for, the integrity, and also what they're trying to do in bringing in the gambling element to the game or legitimizing the gambling element.
Exactly. That's a big damage.
Well, I mean, look, DJ, that was a fantastic interview. Unfortunately, we had to cut it a little bit short just because the delay on getting it started. But if you guys want to check out the full interview, we're going to have it up tomorrow. It'll be playing on our Facebook page. It'll be up on YouTube as well. We'll actually have the full audio version of it as well on our audio launch once that releases tomorrow. But, man, that was a fantastic interview, DJ.
It's absolutely crazy. When you see someone who's been through so much in the sports world directly, he's seen it from not just a bird's eye view like most of us, he has seen it from on the ground floor as well, too. It's been absolutely incredible as well, too. Just hearing some of the stories, like the Kurt Warner thing as well, too. We all know Kurt Warner. Everyone loves Kurt Warner. You got to interview him in a wife beater with the kids running around his stuff, too. Just the little things like that are just absolutely incredible. Everything that he's seen, it's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look, 30-plus years of doing this, I mean, you can see some stuff, and doing it where he did it in Iowa, I mean, that's fantastic. And my favorite part, the part I couldn't get over, and I basically was fangirling about it the whole time, he said he's a fan of me. And so that was, what? I'm okay with that. My ego can live forever. Rick Coleman said he's a fan of me. So thank you, Rick.
You're going to cut that one little clip with no context and just have it playing on a loop around you as well.
Oh, 100%. That is going to be what I put on my phone now from now on. I'm going to introduce myself like Rick Coleman said this about me.
That's gonna be like your Twitter profile from now on too. Yeah. But the other thing I thought was cool is just looking ahead too. Obviously, we know Penning and Linderbaum, they're both high on our draft boards. They'll be coming up as well too. But I didn't realize that Linderbaum started on defense as well too, then got switched over to offense. That was really cool too. So that was really interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, Linderbaum is a guy to look forward to. I mentioned something about that sort of rang a bell. I found out that was an interview that he had done 3 years ago. That there was that he had been when he had been switched over from defense to offense, and literally for Rick to pull that out, just like he, yesterday, as RJ points out, the great recall, the perfect recall on that. This dude's been covering the sports for 30+ years and still doesn't mix up anybody.
Exactly,
and that's what's incredible. And I mean, his story isn't. He didn't talk a lot about his story of who Rick is and what he's been through, but I mean, for him to be as adamant and as much of a sports fan as he is, it's fantastic to see.
Exactly, too. And he hasn't always done sports. He started off working on the other side as well, to working the news side before switching over to sports as well, too. And he mentioned as well, too, he used to study others as well, too. He looked at his idols and he tried to mimic them. He did everything he could to get to where he is, and very well deserved, and one of the OGs in the game as well, too. You don't see guys usually stick around for 30+ years these days as well, too, and still going strong on top of that.
No, not at all. I mean, look, it is it's incredible to see for sure. But we do have to close this one out a little bit. And before we close it out, we do want to get a little bit of crunch time in there for at least the next 30 seconds. So, DJ, crunch time presented by Swift Lifestyles. You guys know the Swift Lifestyles plug by now. Go check it out. All the good stuff without the jitters. It's links in our bio. High-Low Sports for the code. It'll get you 15% off. Absolutely. But, DJ, what do you got crunch time-wise?
We're going to keep it quick and simple. This Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, you can get it kicked off with us. Not just on here, but on Belly Up TV. And live stream as well, too. Not just us, but we got a host of other podcasts as well, too. Our friends at Gridiron Gallery, the MD's Fantasy Football Show, TSS Fantasy. We got a few others that you can fill me in on as well, Kelcey. The list is so long, I forget them sometimes as well, too. It's a full 3+ hour show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we're starting at 12 noon on Sunday. You got Scoreboard Addicts. You got the same podcast. with Andy Sire. You have, like you mentioned, MD, TSS Fantasy. It's actually be Dan, myself, and Cooper. Commissioner Cooper will be hosting the show. So you guys get a whole lot of craziness. DJ, you're going to be doing a couple highlights on the show as well. A couple great story pieces as well on there. There's going to be we're going to have a conversation about food for a football. Like, what is the best Super Bowl food and drink? So there's a whole lot to get used to, guys. But that'll do it for us today. As always, we appreciate you guys checking us out. And until next time, we'll see you later.